Hi there and welcome to a new lesson. This is going to be a lesson in which we are not really going to be advancing in our game, but I just want to show you something that is pretty interesting, and that is this game window or game tab that we have once we play. Because well, we see here like lots of options, so I really want to make this clear. Right now in this course in specific, we won't really be taking advantage of this, but you will be able to really take advantage of this once you start creating your own things. Why exactly? How? That is what we are going to be discovering in this lesson. So first of all, the first thing I have to know is that this window, if we go to the three dots over here, we have the settings of the embedding, okay? So we can either embed the game on the next play, or we can make it floating. Now it's pretty like the interface right now is not very intuitive right now. The UX, the user experience, maybe it's not the best one because you don't understand how this works. Basically here, you can either have the game embedded or it can be floating. Now, if it is floating, it's like as it is right now as a separate window, as you can see. If it is embedded, it will appear over here, okay, in the game tab over here. As you can see, if I want to click it right now, well, this happens. So it's either one or the other. I can turn this off, for example, and now it's off, and this one is the one that is on, and if this one is on, this one is also on, and this one is not, and this one is on as well, sorry. This video is part of my full 10-hour Godot course just released in mid-May 2025. Every day new students are joining and leveling up their Godot skills, and you can too. Want to learn more? Click in the description down below. So this is the first option, this is the default option, but if you turn make game workspace floating on next play and you actually play a game, you will find your game directly over here, okay? And why do you see like this, like super weirdly, like where is our ground? So actually if we go to let us to there to close the output, well, where we see the ground, but here we start to see like some problems that it has, that as you can see with the output on, we don't see the ground. This is not something bad with our game. We're going to see why this happens in a second. Now that's for it, that's the first thing I have to do. What I personally like the most and what I recommend you do is that if you are just creating a game and coding it, I prefer much more to have it as a floating window. I know it is better, it is clearer for me rather than to have it in a specific tab. But now you will see why embedding the game view is going to be pretty interesting in some cases, okay? And we're actually going to see those cases right now. Now on the left, we see different buttons. We see a button to suspend the game, which is basically pausing, okay? And you can pause or unpause the game. Right now, there's not many things going on, but I believe that if I'm quick enough, here I can suspend the game, which is basically pausing it. And you can also, as you can see, resume it. And with this button, you can move to the next frame. So if I actually click it like lots of times, you will see that also the player's kind of moving down. Once again, this is one frame, so it's pretty slow. Now, when we talk about this other section, okay, we have three buttons to allow the game input, 2D and control mode, and 3D mode, okay? So what this does is that the default one is input, which basically allows the game input, so that's why I can move around and do whatever I want. But if I go to 2D mode and I press the arrows, or sorry, the arrows, the keys, nothing is happening because the game doesn't anymore listen to the input. But what this option allows you to do is to select nodes. What we'll see is that if I click on the player, now I have it over here selected basically. So as you can see, I have a gray, sorry, an orange box or rectangle actually here on my player. And here I have actually selected this player. I can now select the ground, as you can see. And what you are not seeing right now, and this is where embedding the game is actually interesting, is that if I select anything, for example here, as you can see, this is changing over here. And in reality, what you can see over here is that here in the path, let me actually make the inspector bigger and this one smaller. There we go. So now we can go back to the window. We will see here that we see a path. So let me actually make this a little bit bigger so that we can actually see the ground. If I select the ground, as you can see, the path says main ground, okay, which is the exact path to the ground. If I select the player, it says main player. So we're actually selecting the player. And why is this interesting? In this case, you can see we have selected the collision shape. But remember that our player has a character body and a sprite. So how exactly are we able to access them? So this is connected to these other options where you can either, the default option is the select mode, but you also have the, let's say, multiple selection mode. And when you click now, you have all the nodes that this node has. So we can select the sprite, for example, and now in the inspector, we can do whatever we want. So we can scale this scene to 6, for example, and when we come back with Alt Tab, okay? Now we see that the player is much bigger. We can even change the modulate. We'll actually talk about the modulate in a few lessons, but what we'll do is to just make it pink. And now the player is pink, as you can see. And you may think, well, but what is the actual advantage of this? What is going on is that we are modifying the game at runtime. This is super useful to test values, to test, I don't know, sizes, to test movement speed, to test literally anything. This is super useful for that. I have not personally used it like lots of times. It's not the game changer, but it is a tool that can really help you. Or sometimes you have an error in your game and you don't know what is going on, what happened, and suspending it and moving frame by frame until the error happens can really help you debug what is not going correctly in your game. And the 3D mode is the same thing as the 2D mode, just that in 3D. And in this one, also note how the icon is both green and blue. Remember, blue nodes are the ones that are 2D nodes, such as these ones, and green nodes, we have already used them in order to create UIs. So with this mode, you can also select UI elements, okay? Then with this, you just define whether or not you can see this orange box, okay, around the objects that you select. We have already covered this one. With this one, you can mute the game audio. Super interesting if you have lots of sounds playing on, or you, as you code your game, you don't really want to listen to the game audio. So this is super interesting as well. This is just to override the game camera, and it's supposed to allow you to move around, but well, right now we're not really going to be covering this option at all, basically. And now we have here, these are the stretching modes, and this is where all this makes more sense, because if we make our window smaller, we don't see the player anymore. So here we have different options, okay, but right now, as you can see, they don't really work a lot. We have these two, which seem to be the exact same ones, but they aren't. And also we have this one, which basically, this one, it doesn't have like a specific name, but it's basically to stretch to fit the game workspace. So as you can see, previously we used to have these borders, and now we don't have them anymore. So what is actually going on here? To understand this, we have to understand stretching, which is pretty easy to understand, at least at this stage. If we go to the project settings and go to display window, and we scroll down, here in a stretch mode, we find two options. Let's say that for now, at this stage, they are the exact same ones. So let's select canvas items. And you also see that we have an aspect. You have different options. We can either ignore the aspect, keep it, or expand it. You also have keep width and height, but they work in the exact same way. They either keep the width or the height, and this one keeps both the width and the height. And what happens with these options is that now we do see a change if we resize this window, okay? As you can see now, if I am in any of these modes, it doesn't matter, I always see everything. Now, as you can see, the game does change when we are changing these options. So let's quickly try to understand. Once again, these last three options, you don't really have to understand them at this early stage. It's not that necessary. But if you really want to understand it, here we'll give you the quick explanation. So first of all, this one. So what this one will allow us to do is to lock the size. These blue borders over here, this one and these ones, they basically mean that they are not the game. Basically, they are not the black bars that you see in this other one. Because in this one, what happens is that the game tab is being expanded, okay? And as we have defined our game to always keep the aspect ratio, what Godot automatically does is to create these lines to prevent breaking this aspect ratio that we have set in our window size. I know that may have sound super complex to understand. I will try to give you more examples, but once again, don't worry if you don't understand it, because it's not really that necessary to understand this at this beginner stage. But I just want you to be able to understand this a little bit more. So if we lock it, what it means is that there is no stretching at all. As you can see, it's always the same size. There are no black bars, and it never gets bigger. Also, as you can see, it doesn't matter if I make this like super big, it doesn't change. Whereas with this one, it will try to stretch to fit the game workspace. So it does get bigger, and to avoid not keeping the aspect, we're going to be seeing that in a second, it creates these black bars, basically. So what this does, basically, keep the aspect ratio of the embedded game, and it seems very similar, but the difference is that in this one we have blue bars, and in this one we have black bars. So what exactly does this mean? You can understand this more if you go to the project settings, and here you change the aspect to expand. Expand, what it does is basically do that. It doesn't create those black bars, it just completely expands the game. And for this prototype, this is what you don't want 100% of the cases, because if we now make this bigger, as you can see, the game basically breaks. You can see indeed more of the game, but the player should not be able to see below the ground. So this option, now we can see better how these options behave. We can make this a little bit bigger, and you can see what happens if the player wants to play in this aspect ratio for some reason. The game completely breaks, okay? The player shouldn't be able to see this. It's better to just have black bars rather than a space that is completely empty. So with this one, the game size basically stretches and fits the 100% of the space. In these ones, it keeps the aspect ratio. So it works the same way as if we have selected keep in the stretch mode. Okay, but if we already have a keep, it's not really going to be doing anything. And in this one, it's going to embed the game size based on project settings. This means that the project will basically never be bigger than the original size, okay? And it will also at the same time keep the aspect. This may have sound super confusing when to use which one. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of this. To be honest, the three options, or actually these two, for example, in 99% of cases, they're going to be quite similar, or you will still achieve something similar. The thing is that in this one, as you can see, it cannot be bigger, and in this one it can, okay? And once again, if you change this to keep, you can get different results. So if you really want to understand these options, my best suggestion is to use expand and keep, and use the three modes, okay, that we have discussed, and see your differences. With keep, as you can see, if we now make this a little bit bigger, something like this. With this option, okay, we have blue bars basically, because it is actually keeping the size, so it's not being bigger. With this one, it is becoming bigger because it tries to fit the entire workspace. And in this one, it just keeps the aspect ratio, but we're already keeping the aspect ratio. That's why we get the exact same result, okay? Once again, I don't want to confuse you more than necessary. Just, I wanted to teach you this because there are a lot of people interested in learning aspect ratios and all this. If you are not interested in learning that, at this very beginning stage, you don't have to know anything about that at all to continue with the course or anything. But it's a pretty interesting way to develop even more your logical thinking, okay? So I just want to give you that as an exercise to practice. And of course, if something has not been clear enough, don't hesitate to ask me any questions, and I will be there to help you out. You can select nodes at runtime and modify sizes, colors, but well, that is one of the things that you can do with them. I wanted to dedicate a whole lesson to this other thing because it's another advantage of using this game tab, and it's pretty easy. So maybe you remember for the last section, that we used the export annotation to see in the inspector a field to quickly load in the enemy scene. Why I wanted to mention this? If we go to the game tab, okay, and we select the player, so let me use this mode so that I can go ahead, and I will go to the mode and select the player. What you will see over here is that you have a constants field where you have your speed and your jump velocity. Now remember that these values are constant, so even if I try to modify them, they don't change as they are constants. So using this, what we can do is I will make them variables so that their value can be modified. Once again, using Control D to quickly do this. And also another shortcut, I will put my cursor over there, and now I will hold down Alt, and I will left click over here. As you can see, with Alt and click, what you do is to create multiple cursors. So you type in multiple places. So I will just add here 2 cursors so I can quickly add the export annotation. And remember, for some reason Godot doesn't allow you to export constants, so we must make them variables, okay, even though we will then not modify their values at runtime. Once again, refer back to the variables and constants lesson if you don't understand what is going on. Now what happens is that we do see them in inspector over here, but the really important thing that I want to explain is that now let me select the player. And now what you will see over here is that these are called like members, basically variables. So this is the default speed that the player has. Let's go back to input mode. This is the default speed and jump velocity or jump force that this has. Now if we go ahead and let me actually make this speed, I don't know, 3000 for example. Again, the jump velocity minus 4000, so 10 times bigger. What is going to happen now when I go to input mode is, as you can see, I move much faster and I can jump way higher than before, okay? I don't know if even the player is going to fall down ever again because it's jumping super high, but if we do wait a couple of seconds, there we have it again. So what this allows you to do is, let's say that we have here the player and that we don't really know how fast the player should move. So here we can go ahead and try a couple of values. So 350, let's say, oh, this is still pretty slow. The jump is still like super high, so let's make it 400. So let's wait until hopefully the player is back. So well, maybe this velocity is still too slow, so you want it to be 550. Okay, so there we have it. So now it's much faster, but the jump is not that much. So let's make it minus 600, and now it is way higher. Okay, so and here you can start to play around with these values. Whenever you close the game tab, these values are reset, okay, to normal. So once again, take notes of the values if you have found some that worked. But well, this is basically the main advantage of the game tab, or well, one of the main advantages. Let me just make them back constants with Control Z of zebra. And there we have the code as it used to be.